Hi is not to my advantage. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I'm the CEO of MuseFind. For those of you who haven't heard about us, we are a platform that connects brands with influencers. Who the hell are influencers? They're people that you're probably following on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, who have tens of thousands of followers. We pair them up with Pay by Phone, BCAA, Western Family to basically advertise their companies through these folks. Anyway, what I'm here to share with you guys are my lessons in boots. So now 17 years old, I did what most Asian girls did. I joined the Army Reserves. And I was 17. So literally a day after my prom, I was putting off my stiletto shoes and I was hiking up my big black leather shoes or boots. And people ask often, what did you do in the military? And I went, well, I shot 2 machine guns. I dug trenches, and I obtained my marksmanship in the C7 assault rifle. So if you ever need a bodyguard, I'm here. So fast forward during this time, I went on to New York City, and I left everything I knew. I left my family, I left my friends, I left my job, I left my home to found this company called MuseFind. We were the first Canadian company that this tech accelerator ever invested in, and to this day, we are still the only one. And there's gotta be a great startup in this room that's gonna be the second and third and fourth one here, I hope. But what I learned in my time in the military really reflected on how we were able to grow a 3-person team, raise 2 rounds of funding, and we've done in total now $750,000 in annual revenue. I'm here to share those stories with you today. So the first lesson is always eat last. So in the Army, you're working really hard, you're sweating, you're tired, and in the evenings, you're hungry, you're famished. And what I noticed was whenever we went to go eat, the sergeants, the warrants, the master corporals, they would always eat last, to the point where there was often not enough food for them to consume. And they always let us, the privates, who we were lowly, stripped of our names, eat first. And as leaders, I think that's important as a CEO, as COO. Don't let your ego, and absolutely I fall for this sometimes myself, get in the way of always taking care of your team first. They should come first. Invest in your team. Second lesson is look out for buddy. So in the Army, we love this cheesy term called buddy. It's a fictional character where it represents the teamwork and the bromance that it really embodies what the military looks like. So I remember that during Reveille, which is when you wake up at 5 in the morning, get yelled at, we all come running downstairs and one private was late. One private. We were all there, but one private was late. So the sergeant says, get down, do a plank, and hold it. And I remember being on the concrete and the gravel, and my elbows felt like they were bleeding. And that taught us a lesson that you are only as fast as the slowest person on your team. So as an entrepreneur, when you look to build your team, look for a co-founder, it's essential to remember that you are only as fast as the slowest person on your side. Third lesson, tenacity wins. So in the Army, it's pretty tough being 5'2", 120 pounds and female, Asian. And what I learned was through leadership, it was less about how loud you spoke or how tall you were or how many chin-ups you could do. It was about execution. And just like an entrepreneur in New York, I learned that so many founders hide behind big Ivy League degrees, previous positions, how much funding they've raised, but your team, your customers, people around you really respect and follow you because of execution and tenacity. So being really genuine and ambitious about that. And finally, size doesn't matter. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about grit, it's about perseverance. The best mornings for us were the ones that we woke up at 7. The worst were the ones where we're woken up at 2 a.m. in the morning. And that happens for founders. Sometimes you're working until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. But just remember that tenacity, persistence, and never being daunted by the size of who you are or your company is critical. And finally, just to the darkness. So in the Army, in the nighttime, we had different shifts. So we'd be woken up to take turns to make sure that nothing was on fire or that the so-called enemy wasn't around you. The best shifts were right before you went to bed and also when you woke. But the worst shifts were when you were woken up at 3 in the morning to go outside and look for fire. And often we didn't have flashlights, we didn't have lighting, it was in the forest, and it was scary. But I learned that if you just stay still, closed your eyes and open them again, your eyes would adjust to the darkness. So as founders, often we feel like we're grappling through darkness. We feel like the criticism is what drowns us and keeps us from surfacing from the top. What I've learned in this now 3rd year of journey is that if you just let your eyes adjust to darkness, you'll be able to see and find your way back. And finally, I'd like to close with that, end of the day, team and the people around you are really important. These are my 2 co-founders, and we wouldn't have made this journey without them. Some of you have co-founders. Some of your co-founders happen to be your spouses or your friends or your partners in life. If you have that relationship, please cherish it, keep it, and water it. And I hope that one day that all of you here can grow into great success. My name is Jennifer Lee Chang, and these are my lessons in boots. Thank you. Oh, I think she's bringing a mic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, it's good.
Hey, Jen. My name is
Hi.
Yuan. I'm from Creative Destruction Lab, which is a venture capital company here in Vancouver. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's really inspiring. My question to you is, especially when you're trying to scale up and to expand your company, how do you protect and defend yourself? Because this idea is very interesting to connect social influencers with the company, but in the same time, I'm assuming now, especially in the US, a lot of people are trying to copy or trying to follow your ideas.
Yeah.
So what are the steps and actions that you and your team are doing to protect and defend yourself?
You know, I love competition.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it drives innovation. It pushes you as an entrepreneur. I remember in New York and Vancouver, I would be like, how many people do influencer marketing? In Vancouver, people were like, what's that? I went to New York and like half the room put their hands up. And I love that because that means, one, the market's ripe. Yeah. There's disruptor, right? The second thing is it pushes you and you're ambitious. And I think to be a founder, you kind of have to be a little bit crazy / type A or a combination of both, right? So for us, we focus a lot on thought leadership. So being on Forbes is really important. Speaking at events is really important. Doing community things like this is really important. It all connects back to the whole mission and the platform. In terms of defensibility, clients is really critical, so we have great partnerships. But it wasn't easy to get those. Like I spent a lot of time literally knocking on the doors of like Visium. VaynerMedia was actually our first client. Like that was not easy to get. And like literally walking through New York City and driving subways and trying to look cool was hard as shit, but you gotta do it. And I've probably been through like 120 investor meetings, and we probably have like 15 investors. So if you count how many times you've been rejected, it's important to be persistent and tenacious during this time. But yeah. And luckily, a lot of our competitors are dead, so I'm really happy about that. Yeah. Ben's on a roll. Yeah. No.
I got a question.
Ash.
Hey. Hey,
Hey.
you know Ilya, right? It was my boss and good friend of yours. Can you talk a little
Sorry,
bit
who
more?
is?
Ilya?
Oh, you're Ilya? Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
I love
cool.
Ilya. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry. She sent a really nice email to me once when I hit her up for something. I just said, ask BD, and then she was very nice to me.
Aw.
Speaking of which, like, can you talk a little bit about, being a founder and also, not having that big name behind you, not being ex-Google, ex-Ivy League, and like, I know you touched on that topic.
Yeah.
And can you talk about what that brings to you and how that inspires you?
I think honestly, if we're speaking investors purely, raising capital, I'm sure people here are wondering like, how do you raise capital? It sucks, blah, blah. It does suck, but you have to do it, and you do it. I think investors are almost sick of seeing the same like shit, Harvard, Yale, MIT, whatever. I think they're a little tired, but I think it takes a lot of self-reflection, like what is your superpower? And I heard that word earlier today. So for me, it was like this army thing that I could talk about because I spent like 11 and a half years in it. So I could say, hey, look, I'm so cute, I was in the army. And then instantly that was their hook. That's okay, that says a lot about her leadership. She's tenacious. There's something about discipline and motivation that's around her. So I think you have to find your superpower, to be honest. And it could be as fun as like, hey, I did 300 phone calls when I was 15. So your superpower would be a summary of that. Cool. Yeah. Sure. Omar?
Hello.
Hello.
I'd like, you took the road less traveled, which is like making a company or a startup. I'm like curious about like how did you make that decision? Like most people choose to like have a job and which is stable and easy and familiar. How did you decide that I'm gonna make a company like?
I haven't really understood myself why I did that, but I can tell you I've always chosen the most uncomfortable thing to do in my life. Like joining the army at 17 was not comfortable, and I chose to do that. I also didn't go into this thinking I was going to do a startup. I remember meeting Keith Ippel from Spring, way before Spring was even established, and he was like, "You're doing a startup," and I was like, "No, I'm not. You're doing a startup." I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just making money." But I think it's a natural path that some people take, and you either thrive or you have to look for something that you're passionate about and you love. Like, we're in year 3, but what people don't know is that for the last 5 years before MuseFind, I was fucking failing. I was doing so many different apps, I ran e-commerce stores, and it sucked. And my CTO and I looked at each other, we're like, there's gotta be something, we gotta keep going. And luckily we didn't quit. And that goes back to my favorite point of Tenacity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think there's one over there. Sure. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I saw a hand go up. Do you mind passing this over? Thanks, Jason.
Hey, Jennifer, great story.
Thanks.
I guess my question is, what's next for MuseFind? And part 2 of that question is, how can we or anybody that's here help?
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, so we're actually coming out with a new product. We're actually thinking about a name. That's a good idea. We're actually rethinking about a name for this new platform. We never called MuseFind the platform anything before. It was just MuseFind. So if you guys have any cool names or something you ever want to name your child and you would love to see it as this game changer in influencer marketing, that'd be really grateful. Other than that, check out our Instagram page. We're always talking about cool influencers in Vancouver or United States. And yeah, just keep going on Instagram because that's what keeps those influencers viable and successful.
My name's Wasim. I heard that's a pretty catchy name and pretty common around here. So.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll throw on the Trello board and we'll see how it does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a SaaS company, so it makes sense.
Oh, way to tie it back as well. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming out. That's great.